Alan woke up on a Saturday morning, expecting to hear the usual sounds of his family getting ready for breakfast. Instead, silence filled the house like a heavy blanket. "Emily? Kids?" he called out, walking down the hallway in his pajamas. Still no answer. He checked his 7-year-old twins' bedroom first. Their beds were empty but still warm. In the kitchen, he found Emily's coffee mug sitting on the counter, steam still rising from the untouched drink. Scrambled eggs sat half-cooked in the pan, the burner still on. Alan's heart began to race. Their shoes were lined up by the door. Emily's purse was on the table. No one had left the house normally. Just then, the phone rang, making him jump. "Hello?" Alan answered with shaking hands. "Alan Morrison." The voice was cold and unfamiliar. "Your family is safe for now." "Who is this?" Alan asked. "Where are they?" "Drive to the old Hendricks farmhouse on Route 47. Come alone. If you bring anyone or call the police, they die. You have 1 hour." The line went dead. Alan threw on clothes and raced to his car. The farmhouse was 20 minutes outside town, a place that had been abandoned for years. As he drove, his mind spun with questions. Who would take his family? Why? He had no enemies, no debts, nothing that would explain this nightmare. The sun was setting when he reached the old farmhouse. The building looked ready to collapse, its windows dark and broken. Alan's hands trembled as he pushed open the creaking front door. Inside, oil lamps cast dancing shadows on the walls. About a dozen people stood in a circle around the main room. In the center, tied to chairs, were Emily and his twins, Sarah and Michael. Tears streamed down Emily's face when she saw him. "Daddy!" Sarah cried out. "Let them go," Alan demanded, stepping forward. "I'm here. What do you want?" One of the men stepped out of the shadows. He looked ordinary, middle-aged, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, but something about his eyes seemed wrong. Too bright, too knowing. "You don't remember us, do you, Alan?" the man said with a sad smile. "Should I?" Alan asked. "My name is Zeph. We've known each other for over 30 years. He gestured to the others. "We all have." Alan looked around the room. The faces were strangers to him. "I've never seen any of you before in my life. That's because you chose to forget. You erased your memories." Zeph moved closer. "Alan, we are not from this world. We came to Earth in 1994 from a dying planet called Cathara. We used advanced technology to change our appearance, to look human, to blend in." "What?" Alan said. "That's nonsense." "It's not nonsense, Alan. You are our leader, our most brilliant scientist. But 10 years ago, you grew tired of our mission. You said you wanted to experience what it meant to be truly human, to love, to have a family, to feel emotions without the burden of duty." Zeph pulled out a small glowing device. "You used this memory eraser on yourself, but before you did, you gave us specific instructions. You told us to find you when your children turned 7 years old." Alan's head was spinning. "Why 7? Because that's when their hybrid DNA would be fully developed. Your children, Alan, are half human and half Catharan. You plan to study them, to understand how our two species could combine. That research would save both our worlds." Looking at his terrified children, Alan felt sick. "Even if what you're saying is true, I don't want to remember. I don't want to be your leader. I just want to take my family and go home." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Zeph said. "Too much depends on this research. Both Earth and Cathara are dying. The genetic combination in your children might be the key to survival for billions of people." "They're just kids," Alan shouted. "They're my kids." Zeph nodded to the others. They began moving towards Sarah and Michael. "Don't touch them," Alan warned, stepping between his family and the strangers. "Alan, be reasonable." "I said don't touch them," Alan shouted. One of the men raised what looked like a strange weapon. Alan moved to block it, and something incredible happened. The weapon flew out of the man's hands as if pulled by an invisible force. Alan hadn't even touched it. Everyone in the room froze. Alan stared at his own hands. They were glowing with a soft blue light. Energy seemed to pulse beneath his skin. "The powers are returning," Zeph whispered in amazement. The memory suppression must be breaking down. But Alan wasn't listening. Instinct took over. He moved faster than any human could move, faster than his own eyes could track. In seconds, he had disarmed 3 more men. When another lunged at him, Alan raised his hand, and the attacker flew across the room, crashing into the wall. Fire erupted from Alan's fingertips. Lightning danced between his fingers. The wooden floor shook beneath his feet as if the earth itself obeyed his will. Within minutes, all of Zeph's people lay unconscious on the floor. Alan quickly untied his family. Emily and the children clung to him, sobbing. "How did you do that?" Emily whispered. "I don't know," Alan said honestly. "Let's just go home." They drove back in silence. The children fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from fear. Emily held Alan's hand tightly as if afraid he might disappear. At home, Alan tucked Sarah and Michael into bed, kissing their foreheads and promising them they were safe. But his hands were still trembling. What had he become? What had he been before? He was sitting alone in the living room, trying to make sense of everything, when the phone rang. "Hello, my love." The voice was female, warm but somehow otherworldly. Alan had never heard it before, yet something deep inside him recognized it. "Who is this?" Alan asked. "My name is Lyra," the female voice said. "I am your wife, Alan. Your real wife." Alan's blood turned cold. "That's impossible. Emily is my wife. Emily is the human woman you lived with during your experiment. I am your partner from Cathara. We were bonded for over 200 years before you came to this planet." "You're lying?" "Am I?" Her voice turned sad. "You were supposed to study your hybrid children and report back to me. Instead, you killed our people." "Zeph was my brother, Alan. You murdered my brother." Alan closed his eyes. "I was protecting my family. Your real family is here on Cathara. Your real family is dying because you abandoned your mission." Her voice hardened. "But that ends now. I'm coming to Earth." "Wait." The line went dead. Alan didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window watching the sky, wondering if any of this was real. Maybe he was having a breakdown. Maybe stress had finally driven him insane. But when the sun rose, he saw them. Ships hung in the morning sky like dark clouds. They were beautiful and terrible, silver crescents that seemed to bend light around them. For a moment, Alan felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he had designed them himself. Then the bombing began. The first ship fired a beam of red light that cut through downtown like a sword. Buildings collapsed in perfect silence, as if the sound couldn't catch up to the destruction. Then came the screaming. Alan ran outside. All around his neighborhood, people were pointing at the sky, some taking pictures, others running for cover. The ships moved methodically, destroying military bases, government buildings, power plants. "Stop!" Alan shouted at the sky, feeling foolish but desperate. "I'm here. You want me, not them." One of the ships descended slowly, landing in the street in front of his house. The metal hull opened like a flower, and a figure stepped out. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that seemed to float around her shoulders. Her skin had a faint luminescence, and her eyes were the color of starlight. She wore robes that shifted between blue and purple, like the northern lights. Despite her alien appearance, something about her face seemed familiar, like looking at a photograph of someone you loved but couldn't quite remember. "Hello, Alan," Lyra said softly. "Are you really my wife?" Alan asked. "I was. For 2 centuries, we explored the galaxy together. We discovered new worlds, cataloged new species. You were the most brilliant scientist Cathara ever produced." She stepped closer. "And then you broke my heart. I don't remember any of that." "I know. That's what makes this so painful." Tears that looked like liquid starlight rolled down her cheeks. The Alan I loved would never have chosen strangers over his own people. Behind Alan, Emily and the children appeared in the doorway. "Daddy?" Sarah called out. "Who is that lady?" Lyra's gaze shifted to the children, and her expression changed. Even from a distance, Alan could see the recognition and the hunger for knowledge in her eyes. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "The first successful human Catharan hybrids. Do you understand what that means? They could be the key to saving both our species." "They're my children," Alan said firmly. "Not your science experiment." "They can be both." Lyra raised her hand and a device materialized in her palm. "This will allow us to study their DNA. We can learn so much." "No." "Alan, be reasonable. Cathara is dying. Our sun is growing cold. These children might hold the secret to our survival." I said no. Lyra's expression hardened. She gestured to the sky where more ships were appearing. "Then you force me to choose between my people and your feelings. Bring me the children, or I will turn this planet to ash." Alan looked back at his family. Emily was holding Sarah and Michael close, her face pale with terror. They trusted him to protect them. They loved him. Human or alien, leader or father, it didn't matter. He knew who he was now. I won't let you hurt them, he said quietly. Then you've chosen Earth's destruction, Lyra said. No, please leave us, Alan said. Leave this planet and let us live in peace. No, we need to experiment on these kids. We are not leaving. You have to, or else I will kill myself. No, you won't. I won't let you. You can't stop me. I'm warning you, giving you a last chance. Leave us or I will kill myself. If you love me, then you'll understand and leave. No, she shouted. I won't leave. You were supposed to choose me. Alan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were glowing with the same blue light as his hands. No, he said. I've chosen something else. Before Lyra could react, Alan turned his power inward. Energy that could have leveled mountains, that could have torn apart starships, he focused into his own heart. Alan, don't, Lyra said. Tell our people I'm sorry, he whispered. But some things are more important than survival. The light consumed him. When it faded, Alan lay still on the ground. Emily screamed and ran to him, but it was too late. Lyra knelt beside his body, her composure finally breaking. She touched his face with trembling fingers. You fool, she sobbed. You beautiful, impossible fool. I loved you. I loved you for 300 years. But grief quickly turned to rage. She stood, her eyes now burning red instead of silver. If I cannot have him back, she said to the sky, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet, then nothing of this world will remain. The ships responded immediately. Beams of white fire rained down from the heavens. Cities vanished in seconds. Oceans boiled away. The very air began to burn. Emily gathered Sarah and Michael close, shielding them with her body as the world ended around them. In space, looking down at the dying planet, Lyra whispered one last goodbye to the man who had chosen love over duty, family over species, and sacrifice over survival. The stars watched silently as Earth became nothing more than a glowing ember in the vast darkness. Another casualty in the endless struggle between love and necessity.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more thrilling tales. I also write novels in different genres, like sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. If you'd like to check them out, click the link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more exciting stories.